Okay, 8th grade, today is Wednesday, May 13th, and we're in our writing packet today because we were in our reading packet yesterday. So, as always with these writing packets, our first thing that we need to do, is these journal entries. So again, these are one paragraph at least. You can do more than that, but at least one paragraph. And a paragraph is how many sentences? 5 to 7. Okay, and so this one asks you, it says, imagine you could plan the best day ever, describe the day, what would you do, who would you be with, and what would make it such an ideal day. So this should be kind of easy to think about right now because I know most of us are stuck inside all day. So think about if you could be doing anything right now, what would you be doing? And you write one paragraph all about that. So 5 to 7 sentences all about how you would plan the best day ever. So you'll do this independently because I obviously cannot answer that for you, but let's take a look at page 14. So today we're going to be talking about participles. So here it says, remember that a verbal, which is what we've been talking about with the gerunds and the gerund phrases and all that kind of stuff. So a verbal is a word that is a verb, but it's used as either a noun, adjective, or adverb. So a gerund is the type of verbal that functions as a noun, but here a participle is the type of verbal that functions as an adjective. So what is an adjective first? We need to talk about that. So an adjective is like a descriptive word that would describe a noun or anything else. It's just a describing word. So like cute, ugly, fast, slow, all those kinds of words, those would be adjectives because they're describing something else in the sentence. So here we have, and again, a participle is a verbal or a verb that's used as a noun or adjective. So a present participle is formed by adding ing to the base verb. So this is really similar to the gerund because in the gerund we added ing, but as a gerund it functions as a noun. Here it's a verb with ing that functions as an adjective. So here it says an example, someday Gianna would like to be a singing star. So the way that you can tell that this ing word is describing star is because you would say, what type of star does she want to be? A singing star. Okay? Humming, she daydreamed about her future. So she was humming, and that was the way that she was daydreaming, was humming. So humming is describing how she was daydreaming. So daydreamed would be our verb there. So again, the present participle adds ing to a verb and makes it function as an adjective. So these words are describing the other stuff in the sentence. So like it tells you singing is describing star and humming is describing she. So let's look at past participle. A past participle is similar to the past tense form of a verb. For a regular verb, the ending ed is added. For an irregular verb, the ending en might be added or the spelling of the word might be changed in other ways. So usually the way that you would make a verb take place in the past tense, which would mean it took place before, not after or during the time that you're writing it, you would add ed. Sometimes you add en, and that'll make a little bit of sense once we look at these examples here. So it says, Max's mother is a trained musician. So if you would say he trained for a marathon or he trained in the gym, that would be a verb. But here, trained is describing what type of musician. Okay? So what type of musician was he? A trained musician. Okay, so that's why it functions as an adjective here and not a verb. Now that en form is her chosen profession is teaching piano. What type of profession is it? Her chosen profession. So how you would use that one as a verb would be he had chosen to go to college or something along those lines. But here, chosen is describing the type of profession. And it tells you right here which words it's modifying. So the last one says, do not confuse a past participle with a past tense verb. Remember that a participle functions as an adjective. We kind of just talked about this, while a verb tells the action of a sentence. So the tired singer rested her vocal cords. Here we see tired. What type of singer is it? Tired. A tired singer. So here we have a past participle. It is describing the singer. Now rested is what she's doing. So this is just a verb. So this here is our past participle. This is just a verb. It's not a verbal. It's just a verb because it's not describing her. It's just what she actually did, which makes it just a verb. So let's take a look at this guided practice together, and then you guys are going to do page 15 on your own. So let's go through this really quickly. The directions say underline, I'm going to highlight as always, the past participle or the present participle or past participle in each sentence, then draw an arrow to the noun or pronoun that it modifies. So that would just mean the noun or pronoun that it describes. Hint, do not confuse present participles, gerunds, and progressive verbs. The waiting audience was restless. What type of audience was it? A waiting audience. So that's a present participle. A gerund phrase, which is what we've talked about before, functions as a noun. Waiting was hard. Okay? So you wouldn't say, here you're saying like what type of audience, right? Here you're saying what was hard? Waiting, because waiting is a noun. So what the difference is, it's what was hard makes a gerund, and what type of audience, because it's describing the audience in more detail. So this is what we're looking for here. It's these present participles. And just a verb would be everyone was waiting for the show, because what were they doing? They were waiting. Okay? So we're going to underline the present participle or past participle, then draw an arrow to the noun or pronoun that it modifies. Okay? So when I heard about the singing competition, I thought that participating would be fun. Well, we have two words here that end in ing. So we have singing and participating. Well, we have singing competition, and I thought that participating would be fun. Participating here is talking about what the person is actually doing, right? They are going to be participating. So that is an actual verb, like down here. So this is not a gerund or a present participle or past participle. Okay? So here we have, and we don't have any ed words because that would be a past participle. So here we have singing as our word. Now, how do we figure out what it's modifying? Well, to figure out what it is modifying, we have to ask what singing is describing. So let's look before it. Well, is singing describing the? No. How about competition? What type of competition? A singing competition. Okay? So singing is talking about what type of competition, so it is modifying the word competition. So here we have, now I was shaking as I clenched a wrinkled sheet of music. So here we have one ing word and two ed words. So let's look at our ing word first. Now I was shaking. If you're having that word was, most likely it's going to be a actual verb because it's saying I was doing this, I was doing that sort of thing. So here it's talking about how they were shaking, which just makes it an actual verb and not a gerund or a participle. So shaking is not going to be our word here. Now we have clenched. I clenched. That's another action verb. It's just saying it's an actual verb. It's like it would mean the same thing if it said I was holding a wrinkled sheet of music. I held all that kind of stuff. So clenched is just talking about them actually holding the sheet of music. Now what about wrinkled? Well, wrinkled You could say, oh, I wrinkled my shirt when I threw it across the room or whatever. That would be a verb. But here it's saying wrinkled sheet of music. So wrinkled is our word, and what is it describing? The sheet of music, right? Because if you said, what type of sheet? A wrinkled sheet. So here it is modifying sheet or sheet of music. So 3, I peeked through the curtain and saw the 5 seated judges. So we have one ed verb or ed verbal, depending on what it is, or we have 2 ed verbals, sorry, not one ing. We have 2 ed verbals. So we have I peeked through the curtain. I peeked through the curtain. What did they do? They peeked through the curtain. So this is just a verb, which means that our participle has to be seated. Now, how do we know that that's a participle? Because it's saying the 5 seated judges. It doesn't say the judges were seated. It says the 5 seated judges. So, what type of judges? Seated judges. So that means that seated is describing what kind of judges. What kind of judges are they? Seated judges. Okay, number 4 says, I realized that this was going to be a challenging experience. So we have one ing and one ed word. So realize is our ed. So I realized, what did they do? They realized. So that is just describing what they're doing, which makes it just a regular verb. Now we have challenging, so we know that's going to be our verbal or our participle. So how do we know that this is our participle? Because what is it describing? Experience. What type of experience is it? A challenging experience. So challenging is modifying experience. Hopefully this is making a lot of sense. This is one of the easier, I think this is a little bit easier than gerund phrases in my opinion. I was trying to hold on to my shrinking confidence. So we have 2 ing words there. So we have trying, I was trying to hold. What are they doing? Trying to hold. So that is just what they are doing. Once again, it's just a regular verb. Now we have shrinking. So does it say I was shrinking? No. So that wouldn't make it a verb. What was shrinking? Their confidence. So what type of confidence was it? Shrinking confidence, which means that shrinking is modifying confidence. So that is what it is describing there. Now we're on to our last one. Frozen, I could not make my legs move onto the stage. Okay, so here we have, this is a little bit different than the rest of the ones. We don't see any ing or ed verbs here, or ed participles. So if we look back up here, we could have ed or an irregular verb, en or another spelling may change the ways that it is. And if we look at this example up here, humming, she daydreamed of her future. So let's look similarly here. We have frozen, ends with an en. I know at first this one was probably more difficult because we're looking for those eds and those ings, but if you don't see those eds or those ings, or any of the ed or ing ending words don't make sense as a participle, look for the en or some other type of word that is usually a verb, and see if it's modifying other stuff in the sentence. So froze, I know we don't usually think of frozen as a verb, but if you said, I was frozen in time, frozen would be a verb, okay? But here, frozen is describing who? I was what? Frozen. So frozen is modifying that word I. Just like up here, it was modifying, humming was modifying she. Okay? So now you guys are going to do page 15 on your own. If you need any help with these, I'll be available in office hours. Make sure that you're looking to make sure, don't just immediately assume that those ing or those ed words are immediately a participle, because sometimes they're still a verb, right? So we need to make sure that we're looking for either ing ending, ed ending, or en endings.